Hello YouTube, I'm Chris from codereviewvideos.com. Before watching this video, I'd like to let you know that I have over 500 similar videos available on my site, codereviewvideos.com. If you love Symfony, then you'll feel right at home here. I'll show you how to build both websites and JSON APIs, and then we're going to talk to those JSON APIs using React and Redux. There's courses on Docker and Ansible, as well as loads on deployment and test-driven development and behavior-driven development. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and as ever, thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Chris from codereviewvideos.com, and in this video we're continuing on with our migration from Symfony 3 to Symfony 4. So at the start of the previous video we had 14 deprecations, and we got that down to just 4, as we can see here, by fixing all the stuff that was generic to Symfony. Now if we look inside our deprecation log now, we can see that we've got two problems. The first of which is specific to our project, our code as such, and secondly we've got one that's related to a bundle that we're using, which again is our project, but it's not really our problem as such, at least not directly. So in this video we're going to focus on fixing the one that's specific to our project, and what it's telling us here is that even though this is quite a small project, if we look inside our controller, on the GitHub controller, we've got 3 instances where we're using the service locator pattern to try and grab the GitHub API. And the recommended way to deal with this problem inside Symfony 3.3 onwards is to inject the dependencies as you would do inside a service. So this top one is actually useless, so I'm just going to get rid of it, and I'm going to remove the unwanted or the unused request dependency also. And then in the second one, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, just get rid of that request. What I mean is, instead of getting it from the container via this get GitHub API, instead what we want to do is inject our GitHub API, we'll just call it API here, and then replace this with a call to API get profile. Likewise, we want to do the same. So I'm just going to get rid of that one for the moment, but I'm going to leave this one in, because in effect you can have both ways, and so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Of course, if we try and refresh now, we've completely broken everything, because without some additional config, Symfony has no idea what we're trying to do here. So again, if we look inside the Symfony Standard Edition, this is the easiest way to sort of start stealing bits that are expected. I'm just going to go back, go into App, Config, and then under Services YAML. So if you was to pull down a new instance of Symfony 3.4 and you was to look inside your services YAML file, this is basically what you would see. So I'm going to take a copy of that, and I'm going to look at the one that we've got, which again was generated by Symfony. We've added our services in, but you can see by default, stuff wasn't the same back then. So I'm just going to paste over the top the expected configuration. I'm going to save that. I've still got my 3 legacy service definitions down the bottom here. I'm going to get rid of that one. Now I have a more specific video on what this configuration change entails, so I'm not going to go into it in too much depth. But we're going to give our page a refresh now and see if that's improved any. So we can see an exception has been thrown during the rendering of a template. We must provide a value for the API argument. And so auto wiring should have kind of figured this out for us. But you can see we're now getting a runtime exception which says we cannot auto-wire the service. And the service definition has changed, and we'll get onto that in a minute. The argument HTTP client of method construct references some interface, but no such service exists. And it's actually been quite helpful to us here, even though it may not be immediately obvious what's happening. Maybe we should alias this interface to one of these existing services. And there's something really interesting going on here as well, which we'll take a look at in a sec. But if we jump back into our code, we go to our service, and what it's trying to do here is get something to represent this GitHub API and inject it into our GitHub controller. And this is where it's all going wrong, specifically here at this point. And so we can see GitHub API as a service, when it's tried to be newed up, it requires something implementing our HTTP client interface. Now this is good because we're working to an interface and the implementation can change. We've got a buzz HTTP client implementation of our HTTP client interface, and we've also got a guzzle implementation of the same interface. The problem is we've told Symfony to pass in our GitHub API, and our GitHub API relies on something that implements this interface. But Symfony can't just guess at what that is. We've got 2 implementations, and it wouldn't be very good if Symfony took a guess and passed in the wrong implementation, because it may be that one implementation is what we expect, and if it used the other one, something different may occur. So again, if we jump back to the error message, what it's saying is it can't inject this HTTP client because it can't understand what it should pass in. We need to tell it, which is why it says you should maybe alias this interface and provide a default value in effect. So let's provide this alias. So it's telling us that it's this interface. So I'm just going to copy that out. And then I'm going to go into services YAML. I might as well just do it here. Paste that in, add the colon. So for this interface, when it sees this, when Symfony sees this and it wants something implementing this interface, then by default, we're going to say use the Guzzle HTTP client. So use the legacy definition. But what's really interesting here is that Symfony is actually telling us that there are 4 potential services here. And we've only got 2. So we've got our Guzzle HTTP client, which we've just seen implements the interface. And we've got our Buzz HTTP client, which we've also seen implements that interface. But Symfony has gone ahead and auto-wired up those services directly as well. So these are our legacy definitions. And Symfony's gone ahead and created 2 new definitions. So you can see these are the fully qualified class name definitions, but also the old definitions exist. So we've got actually 4 services there, of which 2 are duplicates. This is a big problem on larger applications, and it may catch you out, specifically if you're using event listeners. This is where I've been caught out in the past. You may find that the event listener has now duplicated service definitions, and so you've got 2 different listeners registered for the same event, and they may be doing the same thing twice. Now this may just be like sending out a welcome email or something like that, but it may also be something a bit bigger, like trying to charge the customer twice or something. So just be really careful there. On larger applications, this may bite you. Anyway, let's give it a refresh because we've set up that alias now. We're getting a bit further. We've now got this bit where it says the GitHub API service or alias has been removed or inlined. You should either make it public or stop using the container directly and use dependency injection instead. So this is a problem because here we're telling Symfony to inject it for us, and here we're asking for it via service location. And in order for us to be able to ask for it, the service needs to be publicly available. So our GitHub API needs to be set to public true if we wish to continue using both of these 2 approaches. So we'll give this a refresh one last time. And hooray, things are looking better. We've now down to 2 deprecations. So just give that a refresh, 2 deprecations. So we've still got this one about the 8 points Guzzle bundle, which we're going to come to. But the other 3 have been removed and replaced with this, where we're reliant on this Guzzle client 8 points Guzzle client. Now, I'm not going to worry about that too much because both of these should be solved when we update to the later version of 8 points Guzzle bundle. So for now, I'm going to consider that our deprecation problems have been solved. So instead, I'm going to jump back into my code and I'm going to get rid of this and replace it also with API. I'm going to inject our GitHub API here, just as I did before. I'm going to get rid of that request because we're not using that anywhere. And now, just to make sure things are still behaving, give it a refresh. That's looking good. Now we can jump into our services YAML, and we're not actually using these anymore. We've just removed the only reference that we had there. So we can get rid of these, can't we? Well, let's see. This is what auto wiring should be doing for us anyway. Don't know what's happened there. That looks like a bug. But notice we're trying to point this at Guzzle HTTP client, which doesn't exist. So of course, if we refresh this now, then yeah, they've got a non-existent service. So the solution to this is a little bit strange. Well, let's just try getting rid of that. I really don't know what's happening there with that strangeness. Let's just try closing services YAML down, opening it back up. Okay, that looks better. We'll refresh our page again, and now you can see we're getting back to this same error that it can't figure out what's going on because there's no alias. But of course, our alias points at a service that doesn't exist, which is a bit weird. And so we got this legacy syntax. And now if we look, there's only these 2 services, the 2 auto-created services or auto-wired services. So how do we use this, which is what we want, our Guzzle HTTP client, in this manner? Well, we've got to use some funny syntax here. And to begin with, I'm just going to paste it in like that. We can already see that we're getting a bit of a warning, but we'll give it a refresh anyway, to see what it thinks. Now we get a slightly different error. Doesn't contain valid YAML. And so the syntax here is you've got to use single quotes, or I think you can use double quotes, but you've got to double slash each of those, which I don't like. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. But there we go. That fixes all of the problems that we've got that are specific to our code. And so we're going to tackle the bundle issues in the very next video.